Okay, this lesson for the Koine Project class concerns a very well-known text, John 3:16. Matter of fact, it's so popular and so well-known that athletes can just put J 3:16 on their face, as a famous football player, Tim Tebow, did, and millions of people will Google it to learn what that might mean, or millions will notice it and automatically know what it means. So questions about it are doubtless important. So we'll look at it for just a moment. I'm going to look at one feature in it. I'm trying to back away from the board long enough. So here's John 3:16, and the question is, the one who is already believing into him, the one who is always believing into him, the one who is continuously believing into him, and the one who is keeping on believing into him, or keeps on believing. So let's just write that out. That's a present active participle. So the one who is, and then what I'll do is we'll just write believing here. Notice the ing. And then what we can do here is put the one who is keeping on. We had a lesson about that because there was a denomination that had said it's the responsibility of the believer to continue to exercise his own free will to keep on believing. And you remember we had a text, Philippians 1:29, we'll get there in a moment, says we're graced to keep on believing. So one who is keeping on believing, one who's already believing, the one who's continuously believing. So already, and then always. Let's go ahead and add always. Always. So we have already, continuously, always, keeping on. Into him. And that's Jesus Christ. So first thing we do in our hermeneutics lesson now, we want to go to John 20:31. What's the purpose of the book in which the text John 3:16 appears? Because if these are people who are already believing, the ones who keep on believing, the ones who are always believing, the ones who are continuously believing, then John 3:16 refers to the provision God made of providing his son so that the ones who are keeping on believing, already believing, continuously believing, always believing into him might not perish but rather have everlasting life. So we go to the purpose of the book, John 20:31, in order that, now that's aorist active subjunctive. This is in order that. Here's that pistu. You see that? You can see that same word there. You're very familiar with that. If you've been working in this class, you're very familiar with that. And in order that you all might believe, punctular action, simple form of action, and I skipped some words, of course, and in order that, there we go, in order that, now this is a present active participle, as ones who are, let me see if I can make a word out of that. Yes, we can. Keep on, so there's a K, the ones who are keeping on, the ones who are always, the ones who are already, and the ones who are continuously. So we can kind of make an acronym there. Believing, well, now I don't have room for my word. So believing there. This is the word life. And this is a present active subjunctive, might always, continuously keep on, and already be having. There. Might always, continually, might always keep on, might already be having life. So, you can see it's like an equation. It's balanced. One side is always, one side is keep on, one side is continuously, one side is already. And then we go to the other side, and it's keep on, it's continuously, it's already, and it's always. So we have a balanced equation thus far. So now we go second. So we've got John 3:16. We have the feature that's in question, that's has this question, because I think the implication is some are saying, well, if on one side of the equation it's everlasting life, it's always, it's eternal, it's continuous, you keep on having it. Well, let's go back to the other side and see if we can have a possibility that someone might stop, I think is the question, believing. But we have kinsman redeemer well established. We have the purpose of the book, which distinguishes believe, the simple point of action. You remember Galatians 2:16, Paul said, even we ourselves believed, puncture action, aorist, into Jesus Christ in order that we might be declared right out from the faithfulness of Jesus Christ. So there's really nothing else to talk about there. But he used that simple action, punctular point of action. It's like a dot. It's like a dot. We've done this before, but like the simple action is a dot. The present tense is continuous. The perfect tense is the dot and the continuation, which is what we're noticing now. And what John did, he was careful to distinguish believe, and then after one believes, they are one who keeps on believing, is already believing, is always believing, continuously believing, might always continuously, might always keep on, might already be having, already, always already, keep on, continuously be having life. So now we go to 1 John 5:1 because we have an answer from the same writer. He says, everyone who is already, always, continuously, keeps on believing that Jesus is the Christ. Now notice, go back to John 20:31, nor that you all might believe that Jesus is the Christ. I mean, it's just the same word for word. And then it says here this interesting perfect passive indicative. Let's translate that out. That's from Genao, fathered. So let's translate that. Has been previously. It shows antecedent action. Previously, has been previously fathered. Perfect passive indicative. Has been previously fathered. And then, of course, now we can put and presently. That's the point of it. You have what's already happened previously. Now we have what's continuously, presently. So we have the keep on, the already, the always, and continuously being fathered. There. So as good as that gets, I'll have to get a bigger board, but these are such simple steps. We just took the phrase out from John 3:16. We just simply went what we do in any hermeneutics class. You go, what is the purpose of a particular letter, a book in the Bible? In this one, we have specific, distinct, very painfully clear. And this is the ordained, inspired gospel of persuasion. So now we have that. We have someone who has been previously fathered and is presently keeps on being fathered, is already being fathered, is always being fathered, is continuously being fathered. Now that really troubles. If you have trouble with someone who has once been saved and is always being saved by the Son, that's a perfect passive participle as well. So you have once fathered, and that's 100%. You're always being fathered. That's 1 John 5:1. Ephesians 2:8, speaking of the Son of God, the Messiah, the Savior, what else would he do? So 100% we have previously been saved and are keep on being saved, are already being saved continuously, always being saved and continuously being saved, Ephesians 2:8. Now that's not just incoherently, that is in the incipient stative, but practically as well, that continuing result. It's passive, it's acting upon us. And then we also have the perfect tense in relationship to sanctified, as ones who having been sanctified are always being sanctified. That's by the Holy Spirit. We have the publican who having been once 100% declared right, is always, keeps on being, is already being, and is continuously being declared right. And Jesus himself said that in that parable. And when he asked for a basis of conciliation, when he saw the temple lambs being slaughtered, while the Pharisee was ignoring both the slaughtering of the temple lambs and God, it says he prayed thus with himself. So he disregarded the sin offering, the lamb from God. He refused to notice him. He did not come empty-handed, but he came praying thus with himself, that he thanked God that he was not like other men were extortioners, adulterers, or even as this publican. The publican who was not so much as lift his eyes to heaven, but smote upon his chest, saying, God, be merciful to me, the sinner. He's meant the sinner being spoken about by the religious Pharisee. So the point is that word merciful, that's the same as propitiation, hilasmos, a basis of satisfaction. He was there without any, his hands were empty, his head was down, he smote upon his chest. So once fathered, always being fathered, once saved, always being. A lot of people leave out the being part to ignore the passive action. Jesus is always sheep herding his sheep. And then, of course, we're always being sanctified. Jesus said in John 17, I sanctify myself. I myself am always being sanctified, so that they might be ones who, having been sanctified, are always remaining sanctified. So let's now go to John 3:36. We have a present active participle. Notice this is the same thing as in John 3:16. It says here, the one who is believing. Notice the ing. Now we bring in our keeps on, already, always, and continuously. There we go. Into the Son is, here we go again, is already, always, continuously, and keeps on having life eternal. You're talking about iteration and then reiteration. Now let's go to John 6:47. He said the same phrase here again. Notice this when you go back and go to your Koine text. Very easy text to read. It's a lower degree of difficulty than using the YouTube platform or Facebook, whatever social media and all those things are. So now we have Jesus saying, this was what John the Baptist said. Now Jesus said, the one who is believing, ing, believing, keeps on, already, always, continuously, there we go, into me. And here we are, is already, keeps on, always, and continues having life eternal. There we go. So it's quite remarkable when we think about it. Then we get to Philippians 1:29, and I was recently asked about it. So it says, and it's aorist, passive, indicative. Those use these little codes and formulas when you do your conjugation. It has aorist, passive, has been graced for you all, or to you all. There we go. And then this is a present infinitive. To keep on, to always, to already, and to continue believing. There we go. Now all we really would need would be a perfect tense of the word pisteuo, believe, and then it being preceded with a perfect action of persuade from patho, and then it having involved with all of it a perfect expression of oida, because in Galatians 2:16 he said, in the English Bible it says knowing. That word knowing there is a perfect active participle from oida, ado, and he said, as ones who have noticed, we're always noticing that no kind of man is justified out from any kind of works of any kind of law except through faithfulness of Jesus Christ. So he says, as ones who have noticed that and are always noticing that, even we ourselves trusted into Jesus Christ in order that we might be declared right, justified out from the faithfulness of Jesus Christ. So let's go and see if we have that. We do. 2 Timothy 1:12, perfect, active, indicative twice. Here it is. It says, Paul said, I have noticed and am continuing always, already, and keep on noticing. For, here's the word for, and this is in whom. Notice this. This is from pisteuo. That is perfect, active, indicative. I just put the two to indicate we have two of these. In whom I have believed. And of course, it's perfect. So we have previously believed. Let me put previously believed. Previously takes care of this dot here. And then presently takes care of that continuing, ongoing. And I have previously believed, and in whom in whom I keep on believing. I'm already believing, always believing, and continue to be believing. And notice this. And now we have this perfect passive indicative. This is from patho. Isn't this something? We have patho, pisteuo, and ado. So we have him very consistent when he wrote to the churches. And this says, and I have been previously persuaded and am presently being, continuously, keep on being, already being, and always am being, continuously being persuaded. So you just couldn't have it any better than this, especially when we know that the perfect tense has a 100% once for all. There's so many. There's redeemed is in perfect tense, justified is in perfect tense. We have loved in perfect tense. We have graced in another text that's perfect tense. So we just have so many things that it's really disappointing, but as the professor of hermeneutics would say, if we don't notice the purpose of a book that we're studying. Now, if you continue to study, you'll get to that, and then you can go back and notice it. And then if we don't notice the writer's use and care to be distinguish believe from believing, this is a verb. It's something a person does. And then this is in order that the second purpose after the act to believe, but notice conjoined, is as ones who are keeping on believing, already believing, always believing, continuously believing, however you need to work that out to notice. It says, then you might always keep on continuously and already be having life. And then you go to 1 John 5:1 where he places fathered, the verb fathered, prior to the person who is always believing, continuously believing, keeps on believing, and is already believing. The cause of that is being fathered, is why we keep always having been fathered and always being fathered, is why we are someone who is already believing, always believing, continues to believe, and keeps on believing. And notice that Jesus is the Christ, the same in John 20:31. John 3:36 and 6:47, same idea here. The one who is always believing, already believing, keeps on believing, is continually believing. There's no concept of someone fathered out from God who does not keep on believing. And that might be, because I don't know what it would, I can't find someone who stops, let's say, believing something. Now, behaviorally, we close the gap. So it's, for example, false prophets. You can know them immediately by their words, their fruit. So first is our words, second is our walk. James made that clear about we have justification, as Paul said, speaking to the Galatians, the churches there in Galatia, those ecclesias, that we trust in Jesus Christ in order that we might be declared right out from his faithfulness. Jesus himself said of the publican that immediately 100% that man was one who, having been 100% declared right, is always being declared right, because the basis was provided by God the Father, who sent Jesus, back to John 3:16, for in that particular manner the God loved the world, so that consequently he gave his only begotten, that monogenetic Son, in order that everyone who is already keeping on believing, continuously believing, always believing into him, this was not a condition. It doesn't say the one who does this will then receive everything. No, this was speaking to people who are already doing that. That's why we go to the purpose and all of the reason. Why would we have the doctrine of the kinsman redeemer and the great provision as a new, very popular, or gaining in popularity, called provisionism? But that goes all the way back to the Old Testament. God will provide. Abraham told his son that. The provision is the kinsman redeemer for those who were his people, the ones who were believing. So the new birth, it falls between here, this act to believe and this result. Now you notice a great tension there, because there are those who say you can't believe. Well, sort of, that's true. No one's ever taught of anyone's ever preached the gospel has ever taught that someone can just of their own believe. We're fathered through the gospel. Faith comes by hearing, hearing by the word of God. Persuasion comes through the gospel. Peitho is the verb persuade. We persuade all men. It results in paismone, persuasion. We know from our research that paismone in Galatians 5:8, persuasion, Paul was distinguishing that persuasion that was leading them away from the grace, that unmerited favor from Christ. He said that persuasion was not from God. So they were bewitched to suppose that the faithfulness of Christ was insufficient for them to be declared as a source out from which they would be declared right. The publican would definitely disagree with them. And of course the scriptures do. So we notice we have paismone, persuasion. So peitho results in persuasion. Persuasion is essentially equivalent to pistis, faith. And we know faith believes, pisteuo. So Paul, by saying that I have been persuaded, am always being persuaded, that's why he has believed and is always believing. And this is why he can say, I have previously noticed and am always continually already, and keep on noticing the one in whom I have previously and am always believing, because he had already been previously persuaded and always being persuaded. He's the object of that. As long as he's being persuaded, that's God doing that, and God's faithful to do that. So you have a blessed day, and I'll get out of the way. And I know the board's crowded, but I hope this answers questions.